do another movie review, and this time this is for the Woman in the Yard. Now, going into going well, here are my thoughts about the movie. Is I'm gonna do my pros and my cons, and then my overall thoughts and my rating score and everything. So, but going into the movie, I had absolutely no idea what this movie was gonna entail. I knew this. I had a the only thing I had know about that this is a supernatural horror, kind of like a thriller action kind of type, more spell, more, you know, demonic possession, also kind of like film. From what I've heard and what I've gathered, I hadn't seen no trailers about it, but just from what I've read and what the plot and what the synopsis was about. So the simple synopsis basically is, the mother, played Ramona, played by Danielle Deadwyler. She becomes crippled by grief after her husband dies in a car accident, leaving her to care for her two children, you know, in this rural farmhouse that they all have lived in. And sadness appears to fear because of her husband dying in a car accident. And then when a spectral woman in black appears in her front lawn, warning today is the day, as a mysterious figure creeps closer and closer to the house, Ramona realizes that she must protect her children from the evil woman, or in this case, the entity who simply won't leave them alone. So going into the movie, knowing that and kind of knowing the plot, I wasn't planning on seeing this movie because there was so much other stuff tackling in between while this movie was released and came out. And overall, the one thing I found very interesting about this movie is the way that they made the woman in black, made her look and how her feel, because she basically, how a lot of supernatural horror movies come, is the entity they always appear that was always appear in the past and appear in the dark, and how the dark enables them and emboldens them, and how it kind of makes them appear very mysterious. The makeup and aesthetics makes them look, in one shot, it makes them look so, out of left field, overly complex, and so out of left field and so unorthodox. Where in this movie, the woman in the black, she also is appears and flickers by light. So light kind of makes her appear very, very much in the open, in the public, and she kind of basically opens up her act and starts to overtly terrorize, Ramona and her children and and the overall in the family, and kind of remind them, when she says today is the day in the movie, kind of makes them feel uncomfortable, makes them feel unpleasant and unsettling. And when you see it, when you see the movie, if you decide to see the movie, you kind of know in the beginning of what she means by today is the day, reminding them and reminding Ramona of her past, and reminding them about, she was basically the cause of what happened to her husband in the car accident. And she also is also reminding her, of how she hates and remotely fears herself, and overtly fears of the things that happened to her, why she's crippled, why she's injured the way she is, and how she ended up getting injured, how she ended up doing things to herself. The woman reminds her that as she's sitting in the yard, and she also kind of appears mysteriously to them as a way of saying, like, what what could she possibly be, attacking them for? And of course, the kids, mainly her son, believe who plays Taylor. That's Ramona's son, who calls, by the way, and asks her questions like, "Oh, who is this woman? Who is this mysterious woman that's sitting there in the yard? Like, what does she want? Like, how does she appear? How does she pop up? And what is she there for?" He asks Ramona. And when I was watching the movie and kind of gathering, Ramona looked like just disturbed, and looked like, just shocked, because she didn't notice of, like, who this mysterious lady was. And appearing in the movie, the light is what I was saying in the beginning. The lighting and everything, how she appears, how she comes out, the light, pretty much when she goes into the basement, and when she goes upstairs into the attic and follows them and kind of haunts Taylor and haunts Ramona. She kind of basically appears in that retrospective in that light, and it kind of faults her and kind of haunts them out, and it kind of just makes them so unsettling, and makes them so uncomfortable, to the standpoint of them not really knowing what could possibly happen and what could possibly happen and occur next. And another thing that I like about the movie is I like the fact that it tackles grief, obscurity, and pain, and the traumatization of just loss and fear also for yourself of what could occur in life and in your lifetime. I like the fact that it also tackles all four of these elements in the movie. And I also like the fact that it makes Ramona and it makes the kids uncomfortable, and I like the fact that it tackles grief and pain and torture and torment. I like the fact that it tackles all of these things such in various ways where it gravitates the audience and it makes the audience feel moved, and then also we know what's gonna and also the unpredictability factor of it is also what I liked about it as well, because you don't know what can occur, you don't know what could possibly feel of what could be the case of what could happen next. And I also really do like the aesthetics and the makeup and the look of the woman as well, the evil entity as well. I like the look and the aesthetic and the and the prosthetics and the makeup of the woman as well in the movie, and just of how she appears in the light, and you start to see her face, and how you see her face on the right side, and how that looks very just hulking and dark and very unpleasant. I like that part about it. I also like the fact that you start to see closed, ended shots and closed, camera angles, of the woman, and also the looks of Ramona, played by Danielle Deadwyler, and she is amazing. She's pretty much amazing in almost anything she's in. So shout out to her as well. She pretty much gives out an amazing performance throughout, and it really just shows you just not only how phenomenal of an actress she is, but also how phenomenal of the entity who plays the woman in the movie, like how they make her looking out at dynamic from both angles, and how we saw from one end and one shot of how she kind of appears as just very unpleasant, and how Ramona appears very much scared, very remorseful, very fearful, and very just outgoing and out there. I also do like the fact that this movie is very unconventional. It's very creative and innovative, and just how the camera angles and the shots and how that kind of just looks overall. Like we see one angle, and we can tell like where one aspect of the story is going. How Ramona and where she's what she is doing now, basically cooking, making meals, and she and all her kids end up still seeing this woman still in the yard, and kind of like how she start making subtle noises, uncomfortable noises, how the glass starts breaking, the tables start moving around, mysteriously moving around, lights start flickering. You start to see all of these things happen, just occurrently and obscurely occurring all at once and once at a time. Just makes them appear in his royal house, starts to make them feel very 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 unorthodox, and very plain, and very uneven, and very very evenly keeled. And that's what the many a few things that I liked about the movie. Now, the one thing that I do think the movie does hurt in this case, and my biggest negatives, my biggest cons, is mainly I think the runtime of the movie is pretty much a big complaint for me, because I really feel like this is too short. I feel like there was so much to tell in this movie, and I really feel like there was so much that they could be going further. That would be the one thing that I would say is a big complaint, and it's a big uh, no for me. Another thing that I really didn't like about the movie is, even though I do think that it is very unconventional and very unorthodox and unpredictable, from Ramona and the kids aspect, but I do think, as far as not enough told from the story and from the script, I do think the woman in the aspect of the movie, how when they show her in appearances in several different shots and several different angles, and also how it appears in several different formats. I don't think we saw enough confrontation and between the woman and Ramona, and how that could really offshore and be more so her her terrorizing more so the family in such a way where it feels very disheartening and very disengaging. And that would be another complaint. So I do think that the movie has some things going for it, but I do think towards the second half it does get too predictable as far as like, okay, they leave. They're gonna be eventually leaving this rural farmhouse, and they're gonna eventually leave and going somewhere else. Like, they're not gonna stay that long as the woman is still there, as long as she's still terrorizing the family, as long as she's still, having her imprint there. They're not gonna continue to be there, and they're not gonna continue to live on and live life, knowing that, they just lost Taylor and his little sister, and then of course Ramona. They lost her husband, and they lost their father. They're not going to continue to stay and live there, and they're not going to continue to stay and feel like they're not very comfortable. They're not very much adapting to the world and the environment around them. So that would be a thing where I feel like some things just the first two-thirds of the movie, I felt like was very, very on point and very, very towards the supernatural elements and the supernatural abilities from the woman and how she's terrorized. And I feel like that was so really, really good. And I really felt like they was going somewhere. I didn't feel like in the second half and towards the third act, the last 30 minutes, I didn't feel like they stuck the landing to me. And it kind of feel as if they was rushing a bit in some parts. And I do feel as if that they had so much to tell and so much to tackle. I don't feel like they tackled enough. So that would be my big complaint is the runtime and just the overall the third act. I felt like it got a little bit too generic, a bit too predictable, and I do feel like there was so much left that there was going to be unfolded in the tale, and I just don't think it automatically just felt like it stuck the landing. But it is very interesting. It is very much something that I would recommend to check out and tell me what you think. Um, and so for me, and so for me, I would definitely recommend checking this one out and tell me what you think, because I really do feel like there was so much that they was gonna tell, and I do feel like there was so much left to really explain, and there could be a part two to add more to the aspect of, will Ramona and her children end up coming back, to their farmhouse? Um, will there be more so a backstory to like what happened, like really what happened with their husband? Will they really flash back to what happened, in the car crash? Because when she explains it to Taylor, she was like, well, your father and I had a dinner and had a conversation, and it just things didn't go well. Taylor just kind of was just upset because the entity when he was telling her about, oh well, she's lying to you, like she ain't telling you the truth about what really happened, and it kind of took them by back and kind of took them a bit too foretelling. It wasn't really much that he could say that really could tell it, and it really could he could overall just feel something going with it, man. So yeah, those are overall my thoughts about the movie and what I really kind of think about it, because me going into it had no idea what was going to happen. I wasn't really invested with the trailers for several reasons, because I didn't feel like at first it drew and it didn't have enough luster to really draw me in. But I do think the movie is very interesting and is very interesting to talk about and very much to tell, and something that is very different from the stereotypical supernatural movies, supernatural horror movies. Is very different from those, and it has something different where it's dealing with trauma, it's dealing with torment and torture, it's dealing with all these elements and all these words, and it's showing you that no matter what, no matter what family you're going through, no matter what loss, no matter what trauma, it's always important to just to stick together. It's always important to just, you know, share and foretell and share your overall feelings and thoughts and emotions, and just let it all go out there. Don't just keep them and hide them and keep them secretive and keep them in captive. You know, because sometimes the truth will rear its ugly head and will be unfolded and will be really be untold and told. So yeah, my overall rating for the movie, I give it 2.5 out of 4 stars, and just for my viewing. But on the entertainment scale and how interesting it was, I give it a 7 out of 10. It was all right. It was cool. It had some really good moments, some really interesting moments. Had some really good shots, really good effects, and it had some really good like makeup and aesthetics and the look. Give me the look of the woman. That has a really good makeup and really good aesthetics of it. So yeah, I would definitely recommend checking it out and giving it a watch and giving it a viewing, because you'll definitely walk away with something. You definitely walk away leaving, even though you'll leave with some questions, but you overall will leave with something that could really be foretelling. So that is my overall review of The Woman in the Yard. And let me know what you guys think about it down in the comment section, and I will talk to you guys in the next live stream, which I will do in a matter of 5 to probably 10 or so minutes, because I will be talking about Easter eggs and spoilers section for the movie Sinners. So overall, thank you guys for watching this review, and I am out.